Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Say Airways podcast, where we are joined by Ryan Stevens, mindset coach, ultra marathon runner, committed sea dipper. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Okay, start off. Who is Ryan Stevens?
What's the story?
What's your story? Big question to start.
Yeah. So to give a bit of a sort of, overview pretty much of, who I am today, I do ultra marathons. I've done ultras for probably 4 years now. So it was, I did loads of half marathons and things like that. And then in 2019, something changed. I was just like, why do I think I can't run a marathon? Ended up doing 2 in a month, an ultra a couple of months after that. And then since then, I've done 8 or 9 ultras, including a 100-mile ultra marathon back in June. So that was the 3rd attempt at that. I've always, or for probably a couple of years prior to that as well, I've always liked, being physically active, challenging myself. And that's a very key theme with my life is challenging myself and then challenging other people to be better versions of themselves in the same respect. And then how I do that is through mindset and wellbeing coaching, mentoring, and then I do loads of stuff with schools, colleges, universities, and private companies and things like that. So training. And I've just started like a retreat business as well called Wild Minds Gower, which is incorporating all the stuff I do, the well-being, the self-development, in a weekend basically, or like a daytime thing. It's going to be a bit of a mixture, but it's essentially getting people out into to nature and helping them to develop new skills, develop a new mentality that's going to help them move forward in their lives. And those are things that I'm like extremely passionate about. And I go in the sea or any natural body of water every single day, and I think it's 1,100.
I was going to get to this.
Yeah.
1,120 odd days.
He's got a tattoo, everyone, of his commitment.
Yeah, I don't think you can see that. But...
So win on that. Yes, I love that. So that is your, flipping heck, every day. That's a lot of days.
Yeah, we've recently started. Well, I say we.
Well, I had a technical hitch, to be fair. I did have another operation.
Myself and my housemates, we've gone in every Saturday morning down in Porthcawl. And Ffion came along once and she was honestly like, I'm not doing it. 5 minutes later, she's like a mermaid in there. I was like, go and get her out.
Gwen was like going, I was like, I'll leave me here then.
It's actually the highlight of my week because it's like, weirdly, I don't want to do it. But like I have a feeling in my head where I'm like, how good you're going to feel afterwards. And I like the idea of like starting the day with discomfort because then afterwards you're like, well, I've done hard shit today. So the rest of the day is going to be easier. What
got you into it? Because you've committed to a lot of days of going into it. Like, are you deeming the benefits from it? Do you know what I mean? Like, what got you into wanting to commit to something like that?
So... I always get that question, actually. Do you feel different, from starting to do it? And I do say, because I've done it every day for so long, it's really difficult to kind of think how I felt physically and mentally prior to doing it. But what I do say, that I recognise about it is that it's a daily reset for me. So I haven't been in today yet. I missed it this morning. I ended up sleeping for like 10 hours last night. I clearly needed it. But I'm going to go after this. And... there's always something it feels like something is missing until I've done it, and then when I get in I'm like, there it is, so for me it's a daily reset. And also, like you said, then it's this daily overcoming. It's that little challenge that most days I don't want to do, especially when it's cold in the winter or it's dark and gloomy, or if I've got to do it by myself, which thankfully don't have to do much anymore because I'm always with a group. So it makes it quite challenging and difficult to keep pushing through. But in terms of like what got me started,
I'm just going to stop it, sorry.
Sorry.
That is so much better. I was staring, I was like, I'm going to have to move it. I'm going to have to find my bit to come in. Carry on, sorry.
So, I mean, I think it was in 2019. I was working for Swansea University, and I remember getting up in the mornings, and some days, I think through the summer into like maybe October time, I was just going in the sea just before work. It just felt better for it, and I remember I was advocating for the benefits of getting in the sea, being in nature, catching a sunrise, and just doing positive stuff for your well-being back then. And that was way before I started doing the coaching and things, that I'm doing now. So I knew it was good for me then. I knew that I felt good for having done it, but then I sort of amped it up a little bit then. And I think I went on Christmas Christmas Day of 2019. I was really ill at that point, actually. I had COVID, but it was before we knew COVID was a thing. So I was really, really ill. But I remember going in and thought, fuck, this is amazing. You know, I felt amazing, great for it. Then lockdown hit in the March. And I mean, we didn't really have much to do, you know, for the first couple of weeks and months. And I think the novelty was great, wasn't it? It was like, oh, great, you know, I got all the spare time. I'm working from home, and you know, but it was a lot of uncertainty and, you know, a lot of anxiety, I think, for many people, because it was like, oh, there is this thing that's coming round, and we don't know how bad it's going to be. And it was just, it was a bit of a weird time. But I think at the middle of the year, then me and a couple of friends, we started going to the beach, jumping in the sea, or doing a beach clean, doing a little workout, jumping in the sea, and then we'd grab a coffee and crack on with the day. So there was about 3 or 4 of us. Then my auntie, she'd been doing it down in Langland, which is a much nicer beach than where we were doing it before. And she was, come down and, you know, do it with us. So we went with their group. And, you know, before you know it, you know, I'm there a couple of days a week advocating for the benefits and stuff on socials. A couple more people are joining. They're bringing people. And I think probably by September 2020, this is like peak lockdown then, there was a group of about 25 people, and you know, we're all in the WhatsApp, and everyone's like, oh right, we need to come up with a name. So I was like, oh fuck, okay. And I just put something out on social media, and somebody come back and said, oh, the Wet Bandits. You know, I was like, fuck yeah, that's cool, love that. So we did that, and I think I was going about 3 or 4 days a week by this point. But the reason it was, I said about, you know, going with people, because I was going with a few people, you know, in the group every time we were doing it, which was a couple of days a week, it felt easy, do you know what I mean? So I was, probably doing 3 or 4 days a week. And then I think October 2020, somebody randomly come up to me and said, oh, you're Ryan, the 100-day dipper. And I was like, am I?
What a great name.
Am I? I was like, I don't think I am. I was like,
I
said, my name's Ryan. I don't think I'm the 100-day dipper. And they were like, yeah, you train in Funky Pump, didn't you? And I was like, not really. I said, now and again. It turns out there was another guy called Ryan. It was him and his partner Rachel, and they were doing 100 days of consecutive dipping. Right? So I thought, but before I knew that, I was like, fuck, I like the sound of that.
I want to be the 100-day dipper.
Yeah, I was like,
I can do better. I go 1,000.
But that was it. I was like, I like the sound of that. And I liked doing challenges anyway, you know, and I thought, okay, what's everyday UK winter? So I Googled it, and it said from that day, actually, 26th of October till spring equinox, March the 20th. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's something. It was like 120 something days. So I thought, okay, perfect. That's a bit of a serendipitous thing, the fact that it's saying from that day. So I just started doing the consecutive days, and before I even hit 100 days consecutive, I knew that I was going to keep on going with it. You know, I didn't know where it was going to lead to, but I just knew it was something I needed to keep doing. I felt great physically and mentally. It created, like, obviously this amazing community of people. I've met so many people from it. But even though it's not something I get paid for with running the sea dipping group, I literally just put the times up, very flaky with the times as well. I turn up 15, 20 minutes late. Yeah, this morning I didn't turn up at all. Obviously a few of them went there. But
do they ever go? Do they like give you grief? They're like, oh, don't fancy it
It's
today.
an accountability thing.
Yeah.
yeah, they do a little bit. Yeah, one of the guys said to me, because I asked, there was a guy like I think he's in his 60s or 70s actually, and I spoke to him in a cafe yesterday. He said, oh, you're the lot that go in the sea. And I went, yeah, that's us. And got him to come along this morning, but I didn't even bloody...
turn up.
I know, and I didn't turn up. So, I had a bit of grief off one of the guys. He's like, you telling people to come and not showing up. But
it's interesting, really, because I read something that you'd said that the impact that doing this has had on people. And I wanted to chat to you about how that is for you, because, quote me if I'm wrong, but someone said that, you know, there's a lot of people that wouldn't feel like they would be here if it wasn't for the community that you've created. So how is that for you?
It's quite hard to process, actually. So, you know, like it's a wellness community, and like the act that we do is getting in the sea. You know, that's the kind of way I look at it. You know, so we get up, we get to the sea, but you don't really need to do that. And I think we do a lot of social stuff as well. But in terms of like when we first started it during lockdown, like I said, it was, for me, I'm just getting up doing something I enjoy, something that makes me feel good, and I'm just telling other people to do the same thing, you know, because it's, you know, good. I know how it's helped me. So it didn't really feel when somebody was saying like, look, during this time, like I was in a really shit place, and coming down, being part of the group, getting in the sea, it literally saved me. And like there was a few people who said things or variations of that, and for me it kind of I don't know, it didn't feel like I did anything. Do you know what I mean? And it didn't feel like I did anything. I was like, I'm just telling people something that's good. But that's the important thing I've learned actually, is we can all do that. I think just sharing stuff that we know works for us. You never know when people are listening. So just with this podcast now, it sometimes feels like, because you don't, or maybe now and again you get messages, you get the likes and get the comments and all that kind of stuff. But, until you actually get somebody who just comes out of the woodwork and says, do you know what, this has really, really helped me, it's quite hard to know the effect you're having. And I kind of knew that around that time I started realising what I'm doing is making an impact, even if I don't see that. And I think the main thing is just being true to yourself, doing what you know is right and good for you and, good for other people. And just trusting that it's going to, the ripple effect is going to have an effect in ways that you won't actually realise. So like the school talks, half the time, they're sitting there at the end of it, and you can imagine, right? You can imagine some schools, they seem like they don't care.
Yeah.
They seem like they don't care, but weirdly, you've only got to get one.
Yeah.
You've only got to get one. You've only got to get one thing through to one person. And it's quite weird because sometimes then I'll get feedback from like it was a Year 7 group in Tenby actually. And it was the last session of the day. I'd literally done 5 hours pretty much back to back of school talks. And it's just my story over and over. So by the end of it, I was like, my head is fucked.
Yeah.
My head.
I'm so done of hearing my own voice.
Yeah. And I basically did like a feedback form, not for myself, it was through this Welsh Government organisation I do it for now and again. And one of the questions was like something that you've learned from the session, I think. And there was one, Year 7 kid, and you could see he'd wrote something down. He almost looked at me as if to be like, to look at it. Do you know what I mean? And it said like, oh, you've really inspired me to do things that make me happy. And I was like that.
Oh, that's amazing.
I know.
That took some strength and courage to be able to write that down.
Yeah.
But no, I can resonate what you're saying, because this is basically the reason for this podcast. And like over these last few weeks, we're on episode 7 now. And
maths isn't a strong point, is it?
No, it's not, or any subject, to be honest. But anyway, it's the people, like the messages we've got from someone saying, like, I had a message literally today. I woke up to a message saying someone had listened to our endometriosis episode and that they've gone to get checked and finding out that they've got certain symptoms and stuff, and like it's the impact you have on somebody else. And I think if you've got the right intentions and it's the purpose that you're doing something, and yeah, I think we've been quite overwhelmed with the feedback and the messages we've had, but it just really makes us remember this is why we're doing it.
Yeah, it's a huge thing on social media as well, I think, because so many people just portray a highlights reel. And I think if you try and be as real as you can, as authentic as you can, it's something I always struggled with growing up, because I often thought like people were judging me or I cared too much what people thought of me. But actually I've realised now that if I'm quite authentic on social media and I'm as real as I can be, I help far more people that way, because there's far more people that are like me than I realise. And things with like us going through injuries, sharing that on social media, and I have like younger girls who are like starting out playing rugby, they might have ruptured an ACL, and they're like, I've seen you've done this, the same injury as me, like just wanted to let you know you're really inspiring and the way you're going about your rehab, do you have any advice? And for me, like that's, if it literally just helped one person, then happy days. Because if I did my other ACL when I was 17 and I had no one to look up to, no one to turn to, and I just felt very alone, which isn't a nice place to be.
Yeah.
And I think that comes back to the community that you built with the Sea Dip, is that often it's not actually the activity or the action that is the main thing. It's like having a vehicle for conversation and a vehicle to find like-minded people. Like I mentioned, I've started going down on a Saturday, and as soon as you go into the sea and you look around, there's like loads of different groups of people, and instantly you're like, right, these are the kind of people that want to do tough shit, and I appreciate that so much, because it doesn't matter what aspect of life we all like. You might not ever meet these people again, and they, all different walks of life, but you look at them and you think you're doing a tough thing on a Saturday morning, and that's pretty cool. And instantly you've got something to connect with.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there, actually. So I've said, I think the expression I've used actually is like people, said to me, that getting in the sea during lockdown or getting in the sea in general has completely changed my mindset. And I always knew that was like you said, it was the vehicle almost that, you've used to get there. But it's the silver bullet. The silver bullet is the community, is the connection, is the being around other people and being around positive people as well, people who are interested in the same sort of wellness stuff that you're interested in, or that you've at least got an activity that's predicated on wellness. Whereas, and for most people, but especially I think for males, like going out to a pub and socialising, like that in a lot of instances could be the only sort of socialisation that they've done on a week. If like I know a couple of my mates, they'll go to work, they'll socialise in work essentially, but then after that they might go to the pub on a Friday or a Saturday, and it's not really predicated on wellness. You're getting that sense of community and connection, so maybe the oxytocin and all that kind of stuff, which is really important for well-being, but it's predicated on an activity, drinking, or in some instances
which
doing
often
other
then
stuff.
Creates almost false connection, because like I can only speak for myself, but like once I've had a drink, I will speak to anyone and about
You do
any
that sober gal, you're
yeah,
bad.
well, yeah, like I'll speak to anyone about anything. And to be honest, it's just chatting shit, really, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I can remember when we need to talk about. I took Gwen to Dubai, right?
you take me to Dubai.
I took my child Gwen to Dubai, and she got a bit boozy on the boat, didn't you, Gwen?
Yeah.
And in the end, I did this. I was like, shut up, stop talking line out on the boat.
Right, anyway, that was 2 years ago, mate. What I was saying is that, like, often I think then people don't laugh at me.
Sorry.
Often I think people mistake, oh yeah, I've got good social life. I go out every weekend and I drink with people. But actually, can you sit down and if you were struggling or if your friend was struggling, like, can you sit down and have a conversation with them? Is it a proper connection or is it just, liquid confidence and just chatting a bit of shit?
I like that term, liquid confidence. That's cool.
She's very wise, is Gwen.
Well, just to touch on, like, you said about authenticity as well just now. So going back to that, I was going to say I realised that's one of my personal values about a year or so ago, I think. So it's like what you said, you help more people when you're being authentic and you're being like true to yourself. But I realised sort of, so Stephen Bartlett, for example, right? I've never been able to like really warm to him, and I don't know why. I was a bit like, why? What is it? I thought, is it jealousy? Am I jealous of his, success and this and that? Or he's good looking. I thought, is it that? And
Is the fact he's a multi-millionaire?
yeah, is it the money? And but then I realised something, and he's got a great way of marketing things, right? So that's his background, marketing. He's very salesy. He knows how to sell his podcast and things like that with really like clickbaity titles, which is fine. In terms of at the end of the day, I think it's getting out there to people or more people because of the fact that he's able to sell it in a great way. But I realised like authenticity, because it doesn't feel sort of genuine. It feels like it's we're doing this for another reason. I almost have like this natural aversion to it. So if somebody is talking to me and I know that they're talking to me because they want something else or they want like information or they want, do you know what I mean?
There's always like a reason, isn't there? Like, calculated.
Yeah.
And I've got this sort of, I've got this almost subconscious barrier to it.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, that gives me red
What's
flag.
our incentive?
I'm like, ooh, no.
Yeah, that's it. So like authenticity is a big one for me. And I think, like you said, people pick up on that subconsciously. You can say the words that you say. You could be like, yeah, I really want to do this, and no, this is why I'm doing this. I really want to help people, blah, blah, blah. And people might take those words at surface level, but there's this deeper part of us, I think, or deeper part of our brain, which almost knows there's something not right there. And it's the same thing with marketing as well. I think Simon Sinek talks about it. And he said, when you talk about or you communicate your sense of purpose as a company, for example, or an individual, if you're communicating about your why and your purpose, he said it speaks to this deeper part of somebody, and people will, let's say, go and buy an iPhone because it feels right. Like he said, that's even the way that we talk about it. It's like it feels right to buy an iPhone. Whereas, something else, another product, you might be like, no, it doesn't feel right. Do you know what I mean? So even though they've done all this stuff on marketing and things, that sense of purpose and that why it speaks to this deeper part of us. And I think authenticity as an individual is very much the same sort of thing. Like if you're being true to yourself and you're being open and transparent and honest and stuff, I think people just pick up on that, and they're much more likely to believe what you say, to follow, whatever you do, and actually take things away as well, if you know what I mean.
But I think people really struggle with it, to be honest. Like, I understand it could be quite a vulnerable thing to do sometimes for people that could be quite insecure or are worried about what people think. But I think we live in a society now where, like you're saying, like, that's more respected, and you can see that more if someone's not being real or true. And what were you going to say? You were going to say something.
Yeah.
Go on, jump in. I could hear you.
I know. Could you hear me thinking? I think a lot of that, you're saying where sometimes people are quite self-conscious. It comes down to confidence. But confidence is a weird thing, because you can't just get it. Like, you can't go and buy it
off eBay.
Or you can't just be like, you just need more confidence. Oh, there we are then. Cheers for that. Like, I'm more confident.
I'm now confident.
But it comes back down to, one, like you say, your purpose, but then having action and like proof that you can do it. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, is they're like, I wish I was more confident. But you've got to just do it. You've got to do it first to get confident at it. Like, the first time we came to sit down to do a podcast,
we were here for ages.
We were here for ages because we're like, is this right? Is that right? But like, all of a sudden then, a couple of weeks down the line, it becomes more natural because I go, hang on a minute, I've done this on episode 1, 2, 3, 4. And your brain does that subconsciously.
It becomes a habit then, doesn't it? Like, it becomes like second nature.
Yeah, and confidence as well is an interesting one, because I always say this, is like, people will say, I'm just not a confident person. And confidence is a bit of a spectrum. I think that's probably, a fair way to put it. So it's not just, I'm not confident, because that means that you're not confident in absolutely anything. So if you said to somebody, okay, so, when you say you're not confident, what do you mean? Like, if you, would you go up to somebody, like a male or female on the other side of a bar, and just be like, oh, hi, are you okay? And speak to them in that sense. Oh, no, God, no, I wouldn't do that. Okay. Would you, go and do a job interview? Oh, yeah, I've done that loads of times. Oh, okay, so you've got enough confidence.
Form of confidence,
yeah. You've got a form of it. And it's like, it's varying degrees in different areas. So, like, if you ask them as well, okay, so tell me something that you love doing or enjoy, right? And it could even be gaming. So if we talk about a younger demographic, gaming could be something they love. So it's like, okay, let's just say Grand Theft Auto. They play it all the time. Could you tell me, everything about Grand Theft Auto? And they'll probably reel loads of stuff off. It's, so you're confident in talking about something that you know. And it's like, or if they know about football, they could confidently tell you all of the things they know about football and what they enjoy about football and things like that. So, once you recognize that confidence, it's like, you can be confident in different things, but it's not just like this broad thing, I'm not confident. If you kind of recognize, okay, well, I'm not confident in social situations. I'm not confident with maybe going and speaking to like the opposite member of the, or somebody I fancy, for example. But I am confident with my abilities, or I am confident with my work. And do you know what I mean? So getting people to recognize the things that they're slightly confident in, and then you can almost use that as a blueprint. Then it's like, well, how did I get confident in that? And it comes back to what you said. Then it's like, the proof is in the pudding almost.
Yeah.
If you've gone and done something and the world didn't end, okay, great. You can build on that.
Because I feel like we can shut ourselves off to those things.
Glass ceilings.
Yeah, and because like, you get a bit anxious about something new or the unknown of something, and then you shut yourself off to it, and you do it, and you're like, oh, why was I so anxious about that? I bloody loved it.
It's always
whatever.
worse in your head as well. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
100%. It's like a demon that but then I think we're our own worst enemy in that sense, because you can shut down and shut off so many opportunities, so many things that you could actually love or enjoy or could be really successful in something, because you're like afraid of being vulnerable by not being confident or not knowing about certain things.
It's absolutely a vicious cycle as well.
It is, yeah.
Because as soon as you're not confident to do something and you don't do it, then you lose opportunities to become more confident, and then it just spirals and goes down.
There's a video I seen Matthew McConaughey sharing on social media a couple of months back, and I think he was talking about his friend's grandfather or something, and he said he lived till he was like in his 90s or something like that, and he said he always remembered him saying something along the lines of, in my life I've had many crises, and most of them never happened. And, and he kind of, it encapsulates, like you said, that mentality of like, fuck, the world's going to end, and, you know, we make ourselves anxious about certain things, and a lot of it won't actually come to pass, or if it does, it won't be as bad as we think. And, you know, it's always worth mentioning as well, like rock bottom. If somebody feels like they're at rock bottom, you know, the way to look at it then is, okay, well, the only way is up. If this is what rock bottom is for me, the only way I can go right now is up. And, you know, I think, because when we get into that position where we feel like, oh shit, this is literally like I'm at rock bottom right now, you know, it's hard to get out of that. But I think just sort of reassuring ourselves that, okay, well, if I'm saying this is rock bottom, that means that the only way I can go from here is up. And there's quite like something reassuring in that as well. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but then I think, yeah.
You did it me.
No, you did. No, I think
The
that's really
coffee
interesting though.
skipped.
The rock bottom thing is good though. Because like, what can you speak about an experience that's been your rock bottom, and then how, if someone else was listening to this, that could really like, what word am I looking for? Hang on.
Take use from.
Resonate.
Resonate.
We'll cut that bit
relate
out.
to.
No, we
That
won't
could
cut it out.
really
Leave it in.
resonate.
Authentic.
Well, thank you. There we are. Resonate with you and be like, okay, no, I'm at rock bottom, or I've been there. How do you get out of it? Do you know what I mean? And I know you're saying, like we've just spoke about, the only way is up, but sometimes you can't really see it. Some people you can't see getting out of that dark place.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, rock bottom is like if you've fallen into a pit. It's like you can't see what the landscape around the pit looks like. Do you know what I mean? All you can see are the walls of the hole that you've fallen into, sort of thing. And yeah, I always say, like, you know, self-talk, I'll come on to my rock bottom in a sec, but the self-talk, it's, if we keep saying to ourselves when we're in this pit, in this low place, fuck, I've messed everything up, I'm, you know, in this really low place, like, I'm never going to come out of this, everybody hates me, whatever it is, you know, if we keep feeding that wolf in our brain, all we're doing is like picking up this shovel, metaphorical shovel, and just digging our metaphorical pit even deeper. You know, and I did this very much myself, where I just kind of was just beating myself up, and I had to go, right, I need to put this shovel down. So my rock bottom, back in 2015, I was running a business. I had it set up a tattoo studio at the age of 19. Had that running for about 2 years. So it was me and my business partner. We had 2 people working there plus 2 apprentices. And, you know, for somebody, I was bullied in school for probably about 2 years. So my self-confidence, self-worth, all that kind of stuff was really, really low for a long time. And I ended up setting up this business, literally never come from money or anything. So we didn't even have a penny to our name, like just before we managed to secure like 6,000 funding from a couple of people. But it was, when we set it up, for the first time in my life, I was like, fuck, I'm actually really proud of myself, you know, like I've achieved something that, you know, I didn't think was possible. My family didn't think was possible. My friends didn't think were possible. And it wasn't like a, fuck you, like, look what I've done. It wasn't like that. There was part of that, you know, because my friends, they...
Like a
But
small package.
in the back of your head, yeah.
Yeah, just like that. But yeah, my friends like laughed me out of the house when I was talking about it a few weeks before we set it up. So when I did it, I was like, you know, yeah, fuck it. You know, this felt good, but also just because of the self-confidence thing, I was like, shit, this is something that a lot of people my age have never done. But anyway, it was great initially. But after about a year, me and my, you know, business partner, we had like loads of stuff going on. Like we had, you know, arguments and things like that. I just got into a really low place mentally because of everything that was going on within the business. And yeah, there was like, you know, money going missing and things like that. It became like just a really toxic environment. And I didn't realize how much of a low place I was in. I really didn't realize. And I always say it felt like I was just, you know, when you're in the car and you're driving through the mist, you can't see where the next turning is. You're just like, oh, fuck, there's my turn. You know, you're making these
Like,
last minute
You're
decisions.
reactive instead of proactive as well.
Yeah, perfect. That's, you know, very much reactive, just like reacting to a situation or making decisions in the moment, not really thinking about
How you surviving? You're basically surviving, right?
Yeah. And got to a really low place, and I knew that, you know, the guys who I was working with and stuff, they were going to go elsewhere and set up another business. So, you know, I think 20-year-old at this time, or 20 or 21-year-old at this point, you know, the ego thing was there. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to end up in loads of debt, you know, because I'd seen my, you know, parents struggling with that kind of stuff. So I was like, I don't want to end up in debt. That's like, you know, one of the worst things that could happen. And then I realised actually that it's not, but yeah, I realised that years later.
20-year-old you did.
And it also, I was like, fuck, I don't want to be seen as a failure. So all this stuff was going on in my head. And because I couldn't see another way out of it, because I was like, I don't want all this to happen. I ended up selling drugs for, not even for a long time, really. I did it for probably like 3 months or a little bit longer, maybe. And that, for me, that was my sort of way of having some money put aside. So when they do go elsewhere and whatever, if they, like just leave the business, I'm not going to end up in loads of debt and all that kind of stuff. If I'd actually sat there and worked out logically, didn't really stand to lose that much. I really didn't. It wouldn't have been the end of the world. But at that point, like I said, I didn't
see it out.
Tunnel vision.
Couldn't see the way out. So yeah, end up doing that. And I ended up leaving the business in the end because I was like, when I was going on nights out and stuff, I was like doing it myself as well. I never liked it, hated it. And I was like, I don't like this person that I am right now. And people do say to me, they're like, do you feel like you were on a bad road? And I'm like, no, I was like making bad decisions, but I ended up leaving the business, got a job in Admiral. And after a couple of days, I was like, fuck, I feel much better already. I felt like this weight was lifted off my shoulders because I was in a less toxic, a non-toxic environment. I was around people then, and I was like, fuck it, all these people are so positive, but they were just normal people,
Yeah, it's just different to the environment you'd been used to.
Yeah, and it was really like, I started to come out of that shell I was in almost. But it was at that point, like I said, a couple of weeks after I left the business, I was like, right, I'm just getting rid of the last kind of bit of stuff I've got on me here because I don't like being this person. I don't like who I'm become, who was making me and stuff. So I was trying to get rid of the last bit, and I ended up getting caught whilst doing that. And you know what? It was a bit of a sod's law thing, but I'm glad that it happened. I'm glad that it happened because I learned so much from that experience.
Post-traumatic growth.
Ooh,
Yeah, we've learned a lot about it.
This is
People go one of two ways.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got post-traumatic stress, post-traumatic growth. Carry on.
Sorry, we didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, but that was it. I got caught, and I was just like, I got arrested. I was in the cell for like 2 days. I think it's 10 o'clock Saturday night until 3 p.m. Monday afternoon, because they like took me straight to court and things. And then I was, it was a couple of weeks then before I had to go to court again, and yeah, basically I ended up like going to prison then for 2 years, 4 months they gave me. And I was inside for 9 months, plus then like they do like the home detention thing and stuff. But I remember that 4 weeks in between getting caught and going to prison, I was drinking most days of the week. And I didn't, because I was quite young, I was actually drinking quite a few days a week while I had the business as well. And I put it down to, I'm 19, 20,
I own a
normal.
business, I'm socialising, I'm making it. Like,
yeah. Oh, no, it was 100%
you
because I
strip
was
that
in a
all
shit
back,
place.
don't you? And then you're like, oh shit, this is a fucking problem.
Yeah, only looking back, I can see it. I was like justifying it, but I was, it was Wednesday, Wednesday student night, and Thursday's karaoke, and
Thursday student night as well.
Friday's a good night out. Saturday,
Sunday's order.
Saturday.
Yeah, and Sunday we're getting over Monday. And
Yeah, and that was it. And I was doing that in between, going to prison as well. Like, and I remember I was literally going to the pub, having having 2 or 3 beers, and then driving home. And I was like, literally, I thought, right, I'll have 2 beers and then I can drive home, just because that's like I'll be okay off that. I'm looking back, I'm like, what a fucking idiot. Like, what was I doing? But I was in this really, really low place, and it took for me to kind of, to do all of that and then to look back whilst I was sitting in a prison cell and go like, who the fuck was that person that you were like, and yeah, it was like I said, when I was sitting there, in the prison cell, I went, oh my God, like I've fucked everything up, never going to come back from this. And the predominant thoughts for quite a few weeks, I'd say, were, I messed everything up. Everyone's going to think I'm a scumbag. I'm going to think I'm a failure. Everyone's going to think whatever. Like, the perspectives of other people, but also my own self-worth was down there, and also the things that I thought it was going to inhibit me from doing. So going to Australia and American places like that. But, like I said, after a while, I kind of realised, I thought, well, I've fallen into this pit right now. Jumped into this pit. And if I'm letting these thoughts be the main or the predominant thoughts that are going on right now, then that is just going to end up defining my life, because I'm just digging this hole even deeper. I'm digging this hole in even deeper. So I thought, let's just look at this in a different way. I thought, right, yeah, I'm in a shit place. But again, rock bottom, if I'm at rock bottom right now, the only place I can go is up. So I thought, I'm just going to try and be 1% better than I was yesterday and just keep repeating that over and over. Or just learn one new thing every day that I didn't know yesterday and just keep repeating that over and over. And just trust that in 6 months' time, there might not be no difference. But in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, those differences are going to be monumental. And I think anybody who listen to this who thinks like, fuck, I don't know where I'm going to go from here. I don't know how I'm going to see a way out of this or whatever. Time as a way of, and I know people say time's a great healer. It really is, but we've just got to let time do its thing when we make positive steps or positive actions, So it's like, if you go to the gym once, you're not going to get big muscles, a big bum or big abs or whatever, do you know what I mean? It's the continuation of a positive act over time that ends up breeding results or breeding success in different ways. So I thought, well, if I'm reading a bit of a book, or if I'm doing a bit of a workout, or if I'm, meditating, or, journaling and, whatever it is, like if I do it once, it might help in the moment, but it's doing these different things over and over. Once you figure out what does work for you, that's what's going to breed this different person, this different different mindset and mentality and things like that, and just letting time, sort of do its thing as well.
I think I read something that you'd said when you were in that position that you used every day as a day to grow. I think that's pretty epic, really, because you're in a position where you could have, like you said, Gwen, you can go either one or two ways. You can either just self-pity, like, oh, feel sorry for yourself and like whatever. Or, other hand, you'd be like, well, it is what it is. I'm in this scenario. Like, you're saying, like, is this the result of my future? Well, it will be if I feel sorry for myself. But I've got to can take complete accountability of myself and what I want my future to look like.
100%, yeah. And it's... when you're in a situation like that as well, like I said, it's very difficult to see the woods through the... Is it woods through the trees? Is that the expression?
Yeah.
I think it is, isn't it?
So.
Yeah.
I think
Sounds
so.
about right.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
Roll with it.
We'll go with it.
It's very difficult to see the woods through the trees then, but like I think, recognising... Or I always talk about optimism, so I don't say positivity just because, like, being toxically positive can be quite destructive. But optimistic, I think we can all be optimists or try to be optimistic, in different situations. Because you can, if you're in like this really shit place, mentally, physically, literally, whatever it is, you can say, do you know what? Accept it. This is a bad place right now. This isn't ideal. But if I, or I know it's going to be better at some point. I know that at some point I'm going to look back on this and I'm going to feel better about it, or I'm going to have learned from it, or I'm going to grow from it, I'm going to be in a different place, and just holding out that sense of hope. Because even though you don't know the way to this place you want to be, I think just knowing that there is a place that you're going to be where, mentally, spiritually, physically, where it was going to be much better, knowing that place exists is the important thing, I think, because then you're just you're giving your brain almost,
Glimmer of hope.
Yeah, you get glimmer of hopes, which can lower the stress and the anxiety in the moment. And then your brain has got this magic way, I think, of trying to find that magic place. It's like, okay, we know this place exists, so now we're going to look for it.
I think in your gut as well. Like, I think in your gut, you're like, I know that I can get myself out of this, or I know that I've got the potential to be, a better person, or, there is something out there for me. And I think, like you said, you got to trust it.
I love the word optimism. So much.
Do you have that on you?
Oh, yeah.
I've got perspective and optimism tattooed.
Like that.
But it's something I've learned over the last year. It's so important because it's not even necessarily like having to be positive all the time. Like
perspective, man.
Perspective. But like, because positivity, I think, can don't laugh.
That's a blooper.
Positivity is something that can actually be quite fake, because it's not like, I don't think people should look at a situation and be like, oh, right, okay, let's be positive about this, because that's not positive, because you're sat there rolling your eyes about it, Whereas optimism is like, okay, I'm accepting this is not an ideal scenario, it's not an ideal situation, but we're here. It's almost then, part of it is taking responsibility, which is really important in itself, and then being like, okay, optimism, right, what can we learn from this? There's probably an opportunity to grow. One of my favourite books that I've read recently is The Obstacle is the Way. brilliant. Like, it literally just reframes everything, and everything that I've sort of started to learn, it just like solidifies it. And I'm like, yeah, actually, look for the obstacle. There's opportunity to grow in everything. And I think that's what like optimism is as a word.
Yeah, and you know, I love what you said there. Actually, that's a big thing for me. Is like there's a quote I always sort of reference. I think a quote I always say. It's I've actually lost it.
Great quote.
I know, great.
I love that one.
I lost it.
Take your time.
The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So
Nice. I love that.
Yeah.
That's my next tattoo. There we are.
yeah, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek, and it very much ties in with what you said there. The obstacle is the way, you know, leaning into that thing that scares you or is challenging, or you know, what you know, if it just feels, if there's a resistance there, or if there's a if it feels like
friction.
Yeah, if it feels like that, there's going to be, like you said, some form of growth on the other side of it. And I actually, probably the last couple of years, I've always like leaned into that. So if there's something I go, oh, I don't like that, and there's this other part of my brain now, which I think I've just activated that part of my brain so much now. It's just like,